Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston Station, we are ready for the event.
CBS News, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Bill Harwood, CBS News. How do you hear me?
Bill, this is the International Space Station. We have you loud and clear.
Hey, it's great to chat with you guys again. I really appreciate the time. I'm going to jump right in since I don't have much of that time. I'm still a little bit interested in learning more about the ride uphill and in orbit on the Crew Dragon. And one question I had is, how loud was it during first and second stage? You said before launch you thought it'd be louder than shuttle. I'm just wondering how it actually was.
I would say it's probably on par with shuttle from a volume standpoint. I think, what the sensations that we felt were just different than shuttle. I think we said this before. The first stage was smoother than obviously the shuttle first stage with the solid rocket boosters, and then second stage we got a little bit more of a vibration and a little bit more of a rumble, like driving fast on a gravel road. But noise-wise, we could talk to each other very easily. Of course, we were Vox at that point, and we have fitted earpieces that we wear inside our helmets, so that all worked pretty well. But as far as noise goes, it wasn't any louder than I think any of the shuttle flights were.
Did it feel as fast off the pad as the shuttles did with those solids? Was the sense of acceleration the same, or was it different?
I think it was definitely on par. It's just, unfortunately, it was eight and a half years for me and a little bit longer for Bob, so it's a little bit hard with that seat of the pants feel. But I would say it was definitely on par. We got out of there pretty quickly.
And a related question on sound, how are the Dracos in orbit from a sound standpoint? I mean, could you sleep through Draco firings? Did you need earplugs? Just wondering how that compared to RC jet firing on the shuttle.
As you know, Bill, the shuttle had a range of different thrusters, from the small vernier thrusters to the larger RCS jets, then to the ohms, and then, of course, the engines we used for ascent. And so it was quite a bit louder than the vernier jets, the small jets on the space shuttle. The space shuttle with its large vehicle and those small jets just didn't make much sound at all. They were almost unnoticeable at times for the Vern jets. But when Dragon is firing thrusters to accomplish a burn, one that changes our orbit and moves us towards space station, or when it brings us back home, that's definitely a burn that will be a little bit tricky to sleep through, I think, from our perspective. The small attitude firings, those were small, and Doug and I both did manage to sleep through those.
That's interesting. Let me look ahead to splashdown for a minute. Elon Musk told Adweek that if he worried about anything on Demo 2, and he put this at the very low end of that spectrum, he said it was probably the spacecraft's asymmetric back shell, aero loads, possible roll rates. Does any of that concern you about coming home in this spacecraft?
Well, I think for both Doug and I, we've followed closely the parachute testing. We followed closely the Demo 1 mission and the performance of that vehicle coming back through the atmosphere. And so we have a pretty good confidence and experimental data to back that up. Of course, we have been checking off first with this mission. We checked off the first humans to get tanked with a vehicle. We did that a couple of times. We also rode a Falcon 9 into orbit the first time a human had done that. And I think when we come back for splashdown, it's going to be the first time. So I think Doug and I both have a good sense of awareness of whenever there's a first time, we'll pay extra close attention. But we think all the test data has been collected, and we have high confidence in on the entry side as well.
And speaking of splashdown, I've seen numbers that suggest you really need calm seas and light winds for your ship, and that the constraints won't be so tight for downstream missions. Is that true? And if so, what is the issue for your vehicle that requires those calmer sea states and winds?
Well, when the capsule was built, there was an upgrade made to later versions that kind of strengthened the hull. And so it allows it to land in a higher wind state in a sea state, which our vehicle just hadn't had the upgrade yet. It would have affected launch dates, and that was one of those trades that they did early on with the Demo 2 mission. So I think that goes part and parcel with the fact that the folks on the ground will take a good long time and look at the weather, and you know, as we get later on into the summer, and pick a good window for us to come back. That is probably kind of hard of the envelope, and frankly, it should be for a first flight. That's, as Bob said, this is our first entry, and you know, you want everything to kind of be in the middle, not on an edge of an envelope when you try it for the first time.
Hey, last question. The next flight will go up, I guess, in September. They're now thinking, if possible, with 4 people on board. What are some of the lessons learned that you will tell those guys when you debrief, and things to look out for, things to be aware of, that sort of thing? And that'll do it for me. Thanks a lot.
Well, we've already had a conference with the Crew 1 folks, I think last week. And so kind of went through all the things that we experienced up through the tanking that we had in the scrub, and the things we learned there, as well as the actual launch, the feel of the rocket, the different interactions we had with the vehicle, how to live in the vehicle. And we just kind of tried to pass that on with an emphasis on the fact that they do have a couple extra people. And so there's going to have to be some, almost like a shell game, as people are moving in and around the cabin to try to get sorted out, especially as you get ready to go to bed. And then when you wake up again the next morning, how that all flows and the logistics of all that, as well as how great the vehicle performed in all aspects as far as what we trained for in the simulator, the interaction with the touch screens and those kinds of things, and then the docking, which surprised both of us, where we didn't even feel the contact, which was pretty interesting. So we've passed a lot of that on to the Crew 1 folks, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do that on the ground when we get back as well before they go.
Thanks a lot, guys. Hope to chat at you soon. Bye-bye.
See you, Bill. Thank you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the CBS News portion of our event. Please stand by for a checkout with Fox Business.
Station, this is Neil Cavuto with Fox. How do you hear me?
It's the International Space Station. We have you loud and clear.
All right, gentlemen, I think we're ready to go. It's a real honor to be talking to you. The shot looks crisp. You guys look great. How are you feeling into this mission? I guess, Commander Hurley, I'll begin with you. How are you feeling through this?
We're feeling pretty good. Both Bob and I have exceeded our longest time on space station at one time. As far as our shuttle missions go, I think the longest we were ever docked to station was on the order of 12 days. So we've been here longer than that already, and kind of settling in, getting our microgravity legs, so to speak, and trying to help Chris manage the space station. It's a huge undertaking to try to keep it maintained, keep it clean, keep the science running, and just staying physically fit. It takes up a full day. So, you know, we're just trying to kind of figure out the routine and then help Chris as best we can while we're here.
All right, I assume you're talking about your colleague, Chris Cassidy, the 2 other cosmonauts on board. That's 5 people on board. It's a big place. Commander Behnken, how are you getting used to that?
Well, I think we're getting pretty well used to it. Our previous experience, we had full shuttle crews on each of our first flights, and then, of course, Doug's second flight was a little bit smaller, but still came to a fully populated space station, so still had 10 people on board. So from our perspective, it's actually kind of a sparsely populated as far as space stations go compared to our previous experience. They're able to deconflict things pretty well, so we can do our task in different modules, so we're not right on top of each other for the science activities or stowage activities or even the EVA preparations. We're able to spread out pretty well to accomplish those things. So we've got plenty of room up here.
You know, guys, guys, you'll be celebrating Father's Day in space, and you know already you've been nicknamed, the both of you, the dads. You both had sons of similar age, I believe about 6 years old. You've made a stuffed dinosaur famous, and Apatosaurus, I believe. They've sold out of these things on Amazon just because of that. So any message you want to relay to your sons? First of all, Commander Hurley, to you about what you're seeing, what you're doing.
Well, it's actually really nice up here. We get once a week, we get a private family conference that's video, so it's pretty nice to be able to share the experience, albeit my wife spent 6 months up here in 2013, so our son has a pretty good idea of what it's like, but he really enjoys seeing all the different modules, and you can float around and kind of show your family what's going on. We also have an IP phone, so we can call home whenever we get in an available moment. So it's pretty nice to stay connected, much better than it was when I was in the military and deployed. But it is special. Father's Days are always special, just like Mother's Days are. And you know, you would really like to spend it with your family, and I'm sure they want to spend it with us. But we will wish them all the best to have a little Father's Day celebration with their fathers 250 miles up orbiting the planet, and that we love them very much, and hopefully we'll spend the next Father's Day with them.
I think all I would add to that is that for my son,
I mean, I hope you get royalties on those, you know, dinosaur sales, because they're going through the roof. Go ahead.
I was just going to add that all I would add for my son is that I hope he can be on extra good behavior to make mommy's job easier while I'm out of town. You know, it takes a family to raise a child, and I'm not doing my part as much right now while I'm in orbit. And so I'm thankful for my wife for accomplishing that while I'm gone. And my son, 6 years old, has got to do his part as well. So that's the message I always remind him of.
Yeah, but it does get you out of chores, Bob, in the meantime, so there is that. At least chores back on Earth. You know, I've heard that they're looking at an August return for both of you guys. Right now, there are going to be some spacewalks in between, I understand. That's a long time, and it will obviously break the records that you both have had in space yourselves. Are you ready for that? Doug, to you first on that.
Yeah, as far as staying on board for another couple months, we certainly had the idea that we would probably be extended through the summer to some extent. And as we accomplished the launch, and that was the first thing that had to go into the decision tree as far as making that choice as to when we come back. The International Space Station has a lot of things that need to be done up here, and we're able to help with that. As you mentioned, with some spacewalks, we're going to do at least 2 starting next week. Bob and Chris will go outside and replace some aging batteries on the starboard side of the space station. And so I think it's great that we can contribute to the mission up here, as well as continue to get time in orbit for Dragon, which I also believe is important, since the next crew coming up here will likely be up here of full duration flight, closer to 6 months. So anything we can do to get time on Dragon helps the next crews, just to give them the idea that the vehicle can handle a long time in space.
Bob, for those kids and sons and daughters out there who are looking to you guys and are inspired by what you're doing, my son's among them. My son Bradley, I don't know if he wants to be an astronaut, but many times I've thought of putting him in space. And I'm just wondering advice you might have for kids all over the world who are watching you and seeing what you're doing and seeing the pride you brought back to the country. What would you tell them?
I think both of us would tell them that nothing is really more important than what you're doing right now and being successful at that. If you have dreams of becoming an astronaut, the path to that goal is accomplished by a series of successes. It's not just a single event that you can accomplish and then be selected to be an astronaut. It's a education of excellence. It's a career of excellence, and folks are selected from that group. And so really focus on trying to be excellent at what you're doing right now. And of course, education is a critical piece of that. And so both Doug and I know, can look back at our younger years and find things in science or mathematics that inspired us to continue our educations, inspired us to go into engineering fields, and inspired us to eventually go into the military to fly or work on airplanes, and then on to be astronauts. And so I'd say search for that inspiration and just be excellent at it. For me, it was the early NASA planetary missions where Voyager was reaching out and photographing a new planet. It seemed like every time the World Book Encyclopedia upgrade came in, the World Book came in, I'd get a new series of number of planet updates or number of moon updates around different planets. And so that really was my inspiration, and find that inspiration and then strive for excellence.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the Fox Business portion of our event. Please stand by for a checkout from CNN Business.
Station, this is Rachel Crane with CNN Business. How do you hear me?
Rachel, this is your International Space Station. We have you loud and clear. Good morning.
Morning, Bob, Doug, and Dino Tremor. Thank you so much for joining us today. Doug, I want to start off with you. It's been a couple weeks now since the amazing historic launch. What surprised you the most about the journey?
I think just in general, the biggest surprise probably for both of us was just how different the rocket felt than what we had experienced with shuttle. I mean, we expected some of that to be different just because it was a liquid-fueled rocket and the shuttle had solid rocket boosters, so that was going to be different. Thrust to weight was somewhat different. The size was drastically different, but it really did surprise us how different the ride was, and but it certainly was a great ride. It was just different, very exciting, and totally removed from our shuttle experience as far as what it felt like. So all in all, I would say that was the first big highlight, and then the second one was getting to space station and seeing 3 smiling faces when we came through the hatch. It was just great to see those guys, and I think they were happy to see us, to get a little change of scenery on board station and a little bit more help.
Now, Bob, we know you've been busy training for an upcoming spacewalk. Can you tell us a little bit about what you'll be doing during that walk? And at this point, you're a veteran spacewalker, so what is your favorite part about a spacewalk?
Yes, I can absolutely tell you a little bit about what's going to happen during the upcoming spacewalk that Chris and I will perform. And it'll take a team to get us out the door, so we'll get some help from our cosmonaut friends and Doug to get us suited up, and then Doug will support the operation using the station's robotic arm, and we'll be changing out all of the batteries on one of the channels on the space station. So when the space station is in the sun, it's collecting energy, and it needs to store that for when it's in the dark. And so those batteries, as they're cycled time and time again, they wear down and need to be replaced. And so periodically that maintenance is required. And I think that's really the driver for trying to use us, the Demo 2 crew, to execute this spacewalk, is it's time to change those batteries, and they happen to be on board from a recent Japanese launch. And from my perspective, having done a few spacewalks and being a veteran, I really look forward to the views of the Earth when we get a free moment. I think each astronaut, when they go out on their first spacewalk, they're really focused on trying to get all the activities accomplished and do a good job so that they can probably get a chance to do another one if the opportunity presents itself. But after you've done a couple and know what to expect as you go through it, it is important to, take some mental photographs, some mental images to remember what it was like to be outside, so you can share that experience both with folks like yourselves who call us while we're on the International Space Station, but after we get home. And so I'm really looking forward to taking advantage of some of those views. And this time there'll be a Dragon vehicle pointed on the forward end of the space station instead of the space shuttle. And so I'm looking forward to that, something new, that new view that I can capture and share with the world.
Now, this next question is for both of you, Bob and Doug. Some might say that the most dangerous part of the mission still lies ahead, the journey home. And this time, you guys won't be landing on a runway when you land back on Earth. You'll be splashing down in the ocean. What are you anticipating the ride back home to be like? And are you guys at all nervous?
No, I don't think we're nervous. We watched the Demo 1 flight, the test flight, the uncrewed test flight, and the vehicle performed very well. We've seen the in-flight abort test, and the vehicle performed well again. And everything that, all the work that the folks out at SpaceX have done have gotten us to this point, and we have full confidence that the vehicle will perform just like it's supposed to. That being said, it's a completely different entry profile than what we are used to or had been used to in the space shuttle. We'll land in the water, as you said. We'll land under parachutes. Much more dynamic entry. There'll be much higher Gs, and that's just part of the unknown. Is to we have prepared for it, but we can only prepare so much, and we'll see how the vehicle does, and we'll see how we do when we get back.
Now, NASA's ISS program manager, Kirk Shireman, is stepping down, and this comes after NASA's head of human spaceflight resigned in May. How do all of these changes in leadership affect you guys and the other astronauts that are currently living on the International Space Station?
It is important for an organization like NASA to have plans in place to accomplish kind of changes in the management structure or changes in personnel. And so each of the organizations is responsible for having a replacement lined up for any position that might become open that they need to fill. And so that's true for us astronauts. We've often had to replace astronauts. I think the recent cosmonaut launch, the two guys who are on orbit with us now were not the original planned crew, and they were able to swap those guys out with a backup crew and move forward. Inside an organization like NASA, we have to have the same level of capability and backup folks or additional folks who can move up to those positions as they come forward. And so I think if you look at who is replaced some of those positions, you'll see people from within moving up and stepping into those roles and just doing an excellent job. And so that's one of the strengths of an organization like NASA, is that we don't rely on a single individual to drive the entire assessment and evaluation and management effort. We use a team of individuals to do that, and if the leader needs to move, then we'll get a new leader and continue to move forward. And the team is strong enough to be able to recognize their role in assisting that new leader and coming into their own as they take over the organization.
And one last question here. You guys left the planet.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes our event as we count down to 20 continuous years of humans living and working on the International Space Station.
Thank you to all participants from CBS, Fox, and CNN. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communication.